Welcome to today's video, where we will explore a significant document titled Project 2025, Mandate for Leadership, published by the Heritage Foundation. This document outlines a comprehensive vision for the future of U.S. governance, particularly in preparation for the potential next conservative administration. The purpose of this video is to present the ideas and arguments put forward in the document, without advocating for or against the positions it contains. Our goal is to offer a clear and unbiased summary of the core proposals and themes, allowing you, the viewer, to form your own conclusions. The document lays out a strategic plan across a wide range of policy areas, intending to guide the transition and administration process starting in 2025. This effort is driven by a collective of conservative thinkers and policy experts who have come together to develop solutions to the challenges facing the country. However, it's important to note that the ideas expressed in the document represent a particular viewpoint, and we will focus strictly on presenting those arguments as they are, without introducing external commentary. Let's dive into the core objectives and framework of Project 2025, beginning with an overview of the key themes and pillars that shape this comprehensive policy agenda. Project 2025, Mandate for Leadership, is a policy blueprint aimed at preparing for the next conservative presidential administration. The Heritage Foundation spearheaded this project, bringing together over 400 scholars and policy experts to provide concrete policy recommendations across various government sectors. These recommendations are meant to guide a future administration through the complexities of federal governance from day one. The core mission of Project 2025 is to counter what the document describes as the growing influence of an administrative state and a federal bureaucracy that has expanded significantly over the years. According to the document, these bureaucratic structures have moved away from serving the people and have instead grown into entities that wield excessive control over American life, hindering self-governance. The authors of Project 2025 argue that a conservative administration must work from its very first day to reclaim authority from these unelected entities and restore power to elected representatives and citizens. The project is organized around four key pillars that guide the document's recommendations. These pillars are seen as essential to reclaiming the federal government's accountability and efficiency. Each pillar represents a critical aspect of governance and policy focus. Pillar I, Governance and Policy Recommendations. This is the foundation of the document and its most comprehensive element. The first pillar outlines agency-by-agency policy prescriptions and priorities for governing. It contains detailed strategies for federal departments such as the Department of Defense, Department of Education, and the Environmental Protection Agency. The document emphasizes the need for reform in these institutions, which are seen as bureaucratic entities that have grown too powerful and unaccountable. Pillar 2, Personnel Database. The second pillar focuses on preparing a team to govern. Project 2025 aims to build a database of vetted and trained individuals who can take on leadership roles in various government agencies. This strategy is rooted in the idea that personnel is policy, meaning that the people appointed to positions of power are just as important as the policies themselves. Having the right individuals in place will ensure the successful implementation of the conservative agenda outlined in the document. To further ensure the effectiveness of the future administration, Project 2025 proposes a Presidential Administration Academy. This academy will provide training for government officials, especially those new to federal governance, on how to effectively manage agencies and implement policies. The training is designed to equip personnel with the skills necessary to navigate the complexities of the federal government and to efficiently execute the policies recommended in the document. The fourth pillar is what the document calls the playbook, a set of transition plans for every federal agency. These plans are intended to provide clear and actionable steps that the administration can take immediately after the inauguration. The focus is on ensuring that the conservative administration can hit the ground running by executing its agenda as quickly and smoothly as possible. The playbook outlines strategies for dismantling parts of the administrative state and reorganizing federal agencies to reflect conservative values. The Heritage Foundation draws parallels between Project 2025 and its earlier efforts in the 1980s, particularly during Ronald Reagan's presidency. The document references the Mandate for Leadership report that was provided to Reagan during his transition to the White House. Much of that report was used to shape policy during Reagan's presidency, and Project 2025 hopes to replicate that success. However, the authors note that the current political landscape presents different challenges, notably what they refer to as cultural Marxism and the weaponization of federal institutions against conservative ideals. The overarching goal of Project 2025 is to reverse what the authors see as dangerous trends in American governance, trends that centralize too much power in Washington and undermine the traditional values of self-governance and liberty. By reclaiming control over federal institutions and ensuring that the right personnel are in place, the document argues that the next conservative president can restore America's founding principles and bring about a return to constitutional governance. This comprehensive approach is designed to not only offer policy solutions, but also provide the structure and personnel needed to carry out these solutions effectively. The project's long-term vision is to reshape the federal government in a way that limits its reach while empowering individuals and local communities. In this section, we will explore the key recommendations laid out in Project 2025, Mandate for Leadership. The document's main focus is on four central goals: restoring the family, dismantling the administrative state, strengthening national sovereignty and defense, and securing individual rights. Each of these pillars is meant to address what the authors perceive as critical challenges facing the United States today. Pillar 1. Restoring the family as the centerpiece of American life. Project 2025 places a strong emphasis on the family as the core unit of society. The document argues that the well-being of the American family has been undermined by various cultural and policy shifts over the past several decades. The authors describe the family as being in a state of crisis, pointing to rising rates of fatherlessness, declining marriage rates, and the increasing number of children born to unmarried mothers. These trends, according to the report, are directly linked to issues such as poverty, crime, mental health struggles, and educational underachievement. The policy recommendations under this pillar aim to reverse these trends by promoting policies that support family formation and stability. A key objective is to eliminate what the authors describe as marriage penalties embedded in federal welfare programs and the tax code. These penalties, according to the document, discourage marriage by reducing benefits or increasing taxes for married couples compared to those who remain unmarried. Additionally, Project 2025 advocates for the introduction of work requirements for welfare recipients, particularly in programs such as food stamps. The document argues that fostering a culture of work and self-reliance will help to stabilize families and reduce dependency on government assistance. It also emphasizes the importance of fathers in children's lives, citing fatherlessness as a major contributor to many social problems. The document calls for a cultural shift that elevates the role of the family in American life. Beyond specific policy measures, it stresses the need to restore family authority and autonomy, particularly in areas such as education. The authors argue that parents, not government institutions, should have the final say in their children's education, health, and upbringing. This includes advocating for school choice policies that allow parents to decide where and how their children are educated. The second pillar of Project 2025 addresses what the authors see as the unchecked growth of the federal bureaucracy, often referred to as the administrative state. The document argues that this bureaucratic apparatus has become a powerful entity that operates independently of elected officials and is largely unaccountable to the American people. According to the authors, this has led to a concentration of power in Washington, D.C., that undermines the principles of self-governance and individual liberty. To address this, Project 2025 calls for a series of structural reforms aimed at reducing the size and influence of the federal bureaucracy. A central recommendation is to empower Congress and the President to reclaim control over regulatory agencies that, according to the document, have expanded their authority beyond their original mandates. The authors argue that many agencies have taken on legislative, executive, and judicial functions, which they believe violates the separation of powers principle enshrined in the Constitution. One proposed solution is to streamline the federal workforce and impose limits on the rulemaking authority of agencies. By reducing the number of regulations that agencies can issue and ensuring that significant rules require congressional approval, Project 2025 aims to restore democratic accountability. The document also suggests reorganizing or eliminating certain agencies that are deemed redundant or excessively powerful, though specific recommendations vary by department. Another major focus is on the role of the judiciary in curbing bureaucratic overreach. The document calls for judicial reforms that would limit the ability of courts to defer to administrative agencies when interpreting laws. This doctrine, known as Chevron deference, allows agencies to interpret ambiguous statutes, often giving them broad regulatory authority. Project 2025 argues that this has contributed to the expansion of the administrative state and calls for a return to stricter judicial oversight of agency actions. National security and sovereignty are central themes in Project 2025. The authors argue that the United States faces a range of global threats, including the rise of authoritarian powers like China and Russia, transnational terrorism, and the erosion of national borders due to illegal immigration. According to the document, defending the nation's sovereignty and ensuring the safety of its citizens should be a top priority for the next conservative administration. The recommendations under this pillar emphasize the need for a robust military and stronger border security. The document calls for increased defense spending to maintain U.S. military superiority, particularly in the face of growing Chinese military capabilities. It also highlights the importance of modernizing the U.S. nuclear deterrent and expanding cybersecurity capabilities to defend against emerging threats. In terms of border security, Project 2025 advocates for the completion of a physical border wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, increased border patrol personnel, and enhanced surveillance technologies to prevent illegal immigration. The document also calls for stricter enforcement of immigration laws, including policies that would limit asylum claims and expedite the deportation of individuals who enter the country illegally. According to the authors, these measures are necessary to preserve the integrity of U.S. borders and protect the country from threats posed by transnational criminal organizations. Beyond military and border security, the document also addresses concerns related to global governance. It criticizes international organizations such as the United Nations and the World Health Organization, which it claims undermine U.S. sovereignty by imposing global standards and regulations that conflict with American interests. Project 2025 calls for a reevaluation of the United States' participation in such organizations and suggests withdrawing from agreements that are deemed detrimental to national interests. The final pillar focuses on protecting the individual rights and freedoms guaranteed by the Constitution. Project 2025 argues that these rights are under threat from what it describes as a growing culture of woke progressivism, which seeks to limit free speech, religious liberty, and other fundamental rights. According to the document, many federal policies and regulations are being used to impose progressive values on American society, often at the expense of individual freedoms. The recommendations under this pillar focus on rolling back policies that the authors believe infringe on individual rights. For example, the document calls for the repeal of regulations that mandate the inclusion of diversity, equity, and inclusion (DI) standards in federal hiring and contracting processes. The authors argue that such policies promote ideological conformity rather than merit-based decision-making and undermine the principle of equality under the law. Another key area of concern is the protection of religious liberty. Project 2025 advocates for policies that would safeguard the rights of religious organizations and individuals to operate according to their beliefs, without fear of government reprisal. This includes opposing efforts to strip religious institutions of their tax-exempt status if they do not conform to progressive social norms. The document also addresses the issue of free speech, particularly in the context of technology and social media. The authors argue that tech companies, often in collaboration with government agencies, have been censoring conservative viewpoints under the guise of content moderation. Project 2025 calls for reforms that would prevent social media platforms from engaging in viewpoint discrimination and ensure that all Americans can exercise their right to free speech online. In conclusion, Project 2025 Mandate for Leadership presents a comprehensive vision for how the next conservative administration could reshape American governance. The document addresses a wide range of issues, from the structure of the federal government to national defense, family policies, and individual rights. It offers detailed recommendations on how to reform various aspects of federal operations, all within the framework of restoring what the authors see as the original values of the Republic: limited government, individual liberty, and national sovereignty. Throughout the document, the emphasis is placed on reducing the influence of what is termed the administrative state and returning control of government back to the elected branches and ultimately the people. The authors believe that the growth of bureaucratic power in recent decades has resulted in a government that is increasingly disconnected from the will of the public. They argue that the unchecked power of federal agencies must be curtailed to restore the balance of power and accountability in government. On the family front, the report stresses the importance of supporting marriage and family cohesion, framing these as central to addressing broader social issues like poverty, crime, and educational disparities. The focus is on creating policies that incentivize family formation and reduce government dependence, with the ultimate goal of empowering individuals and communities to take responsibility for their own well-being. As always, we encourage you to dive deeper into the source material and consider the proposals from all angles. Thank you for watching, and be sure to share your thoughts in the comments.